Hello and welcome to this Old Dominion Umpires Association training video. We will discuss a clarification of the National Federation rule changes on designated hitter. The National High School Federation rule interpretations came out earlier this week after we had prepared for our clinic this past Saturday. We're going to focus on the second half of the rule, which allows a player DH or a player to be their own DH. In 4B of this rule, the rule allows for a player to be his own DH. In this manner, the starter has two positions. He is the DH and he is a defensive player. The role of the defensive player may be substituted for by any legal substitute. However, the designated hitter position is terminated. The role of the DH is terminated for the remainder of the game when a substitute or a former substitute for the defensive role subsequently participates in an offensive role, or when the starting defensive player / DH is substituted for either as a hitter or a runner. The NFHS has put out an interpretation that contains 11 separate situations, and we'll briefly go through all 11. All of these situations will concern a player DH lineup, where a player begins the game as his own DH. In the first situation, Jones is his own DH and he also happens to be the pitcher. In the second inning, he comes to bat and hits a double, and the coach would like to have a courtesy runner for him since he is the pitcher. In this circumstance, a courtesy runner is not allowed because when Jones is on offense, he is the designated hitter. He is not a pitcher. In the second situation, Jones is also listed as a player DH and he happens to be the pitcher as well. When he comes to bat in the third inning, he hits a double. He sprains his ankle sliding into second base. In this situation, the coach wants to put Williams in to run for Jones. This is legal, but the impact of this substitution is that Williams replaces Jones offensively, which means the role of the DH is terminated. Since the DH and the player being DH for are locked together, and in this case are the same player, Jones is also removed from the game on defense. In essence, Williams has now replaced the pitcher DH both offensively and defensively, and we have returned to a standard 9-man lineup. In this case, Jones is considered to have been removed from the game for his first time. He still retains re-entry rights into the fourth position, but should he re-enter, he would have to play defense and hit for himself. In the third situation, Jones is again listed as the pitcher DH in the original lineup. As you notice, we did put Jones below the bottom line as we discussed in the clinic and separated the roles to help us understand and take care of this on the lineup card a little more easily. In this situation, in the third inning, Jones gets on base and the coach informs the plate umpire that he would like to terminate the role of the DH, thus making Jones simply the pitcher. And in this case, now he would like to have a courtesy runner for Jones. Since he is not the pitcher DH, he is the pitcher only by way of terminating the DH. The ruling for this situation is that this is legal. Because they have terminated the role of the DH and Jones is simply a pitcher in a 9-man lineup, he is now entitled to have a courtesy runner, and Williams is able to courtesy run for Jones. Situation 4 is a little bit more complicated. Jones again begins the game as the player DH who also happens to be the pitcher and the DH. He is replaced by Coleman as the pitcher at some point in the early part of the game. The coach instructs us that he is keeping Jones as the DH, and this is legal. So Jones remains the DH after the first substitution of Coleman on defense as the pitcher. Later in the game, in the 6th inning, while Jones is at bat, he is hit by a pitch, and the medical staff will not allow him to continue the game. Since Jones is not able to continue, in situation 4A, the coach puts Smith in to run for Jones at first base, or in B, he has Coleman run for Jones. Both of these are legal actions, however, they have different outcomes. In A, marked in red, the role of the DH will be ended because Smith, as a substitute, will enter the game offensively for Jones. Additionally, again, because they are locked together, if Smith comes in to run, Jones is out as the DH. Coleman is also out as the pitcher. If Coleman comes in to run, since he is the current pitcher of record, if he goes in to run for Jones, then he simply becomes a pitcher only in a 9-man lineup. Situation 5 has to do with multiple defensive lineups while keeping the original DH. In this circumstance, Brady is listed as the pitcher DH at the beginning of the game. He gets tired of pitching and the coach brings in Kelly in the second inning. You notice that we separated Brady from being the DH and the pitcher below the line as we discussed in the clinic. When Kelly comes in, we scratch out Brady and put Kelly as a substitute. In the fourth inning, Evans replaces Kelly, so we scratch out Kelly and we put in Evans. In the fifth inning, Brown replaces Evans, so we scratch out Evans and put in Brown. All of these are legal because they are defensive substitutions only, and Brady has never left the game, nor has any other player participated for him on offense. In the seventh inning, Brady returns to play first base because he is eligible to re-enter on defense, and he has never given up his DH role. He still retains a player DH status. In situation 6, Smith is listed as the second baseman DH in this player DH lineup. In the sixth inning, the coach would like Smith to go from second base to right field and for the right fielder to come in and play second base. This is a completely legal defensive change. Smith is still his own DH regardless of where he plays on defense. He may move around anywhere on defense, and he remains his own DH. He would simply, in this case, be the right fielder DH, still retaining his player DH status. In situation 7, we simply address the question of whether or not a player has both re-entry as an offensive and defensive player if he is listed as the player DH. The ruling is that no, he does not. The starting players may be removed from the game and re-entered once, but a player may not be removed as a defensive player and removed later as a DH and re-entered twice. As the player DH, he is a single player occupying 2 positions, but once he is out of the game, he is out of the game in both positions, if removed on offense. Situation 8 is also a question regarding the status of the lineup. In situation 8, the visiting team has a lineup utilizing the standard DH option, which is 10 players, one of which being the DH for a different defensive player. In the third inning, he realizes that he really wanted to use a player DH option, and he would like to know if he can change. The ruling for this is no, he may not. Whatever lineup they begin the game with is how they must play the game. Whether they begin the game with a 9-man lineup, a 10-man lineup with the DH and the defensive player being different people, or whether they have a 9-man lineup where we have a player DH, a single player holding both positions, they cannot change once the game begins, and they must declare what they're using at the beginning of the game if the lineup card is unclear. If the lineup card is unclear when they hand it to you, we recommend that you ensure clarity of what rule they want to play by and have them adjust the lineup card accordingly. Situation 9 deals with the ability for each team to play with a different DH rule or a different DH lineup situation. In situation 9, the home team complains that the visiting team is using a different method than what they are and would like them to use the same. The ruling is that each team may use whichever version of the DH they would like, or in fact doesn't have to use a DH at all. Situation 10 is one more lineup situation question. In situation 10, Jones begins the game as the player DH. In the 5th inning, after going 0 for 3, the coach is not really happy with Jones, and he would like to tell the umpire that Smith will bat for the DH with Jones returning as the DH later in the game. This is not legal. If Smith hits for Jones, then he becomes the 9-man lineup player. The role of the DH is terminated, and because the defensive player is locked to that and the offensive player has been relieved from the game, both the role of the DH and Jones, the defensive player, are out of the game for the first time. Smith goes into the lineup as the pinch hitter in a 9-man lineup. On defense, then the coach must decide if Smith is going to stay in the game and play defense or if he is going to insert a different defensive player. But in either case, this is a 9-man lineup. There is no more DH. If Jones will return to the game, he must play a defensive position in the 9-man lineup as indicated. In situation 11, we begin the game with Kelly as the DH and the left fielder. We draw Kelly below the line and show him in the left fielder to separate the positions as we talked about in the clinic. In the third inning, Jones comes in to substitute for Kelly, so we cross Kelly out and we write Jones in the right-hand column. In the fourth inning, Kelly comes back in defensively for Jones, so we write him underneath Jones and we cross out Jones. As we discussed in the previous situation, replacing players defensively while keeping the original DH is legal. However, now in the fifth inning, Armstrong substitutes for Kelly in left field. Because Kelly has now left the game twice, he can no longer participate as the DH. So even though we have made a defensive change, in this case, because he has now left the game twice defensively, he is out of the game. In this circumstance, Armstrong must move above the line into the fourth position where he plays left field, and he will eventually bat for himself. So the question of whether or not Kelly may remain as the DH, the answer to that question is no, because Kelly has been removed from the game twice, he is no longer eligible to play. Armstrong has to bat for himself in the fourth position, replacing Kelly. So for the player DH option, regardless of the defensive position that the player is playing, any replacement of the DH on offense, whether it is as a pitch runner, a pinch hitter, or a straight substitution, will terminate the role of the DH for the game. Again, any offensive replacement of the original DH terminates the role of the DH for the game. A player DH, although he is in two positions, one offensively and one defensively, is still one player and only has one re-entry eligibility. If he is removed as the DH on offense in any capacity, as we said, the role of the DH is terminated. The lineup returns to a standard 9-man lineup, and the starting player DH, while he has eligibility to return as a re-entry, he may only return as a player for the 9-man lineup in his original batting position in the lineup. If he is removed on defense, he may still remain the DH until he returns to the game or any sequential substitute for him on defense enters the offensive lineup. We are certainly sorry for any confusion that this may have caused at the clinic recently. We hope that this clears the situation up. The link shared in this presentation takes you to the NFHS baseball rule interpretations for 2020, as shown here. The link for that website is on the bottom line and will be sent out in the email that announces this video. Again, we apologize for any confusion that this may have originally caused, but we hope that this clears up the rule concerning the player DH in the new 2020 high school rules. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this clarification of the player DH rule.